So this is Kenji's first appearance since he came back. For those of you who don't know, Kenji had vanished. Hi, Joanne. I was taking a nap with him one day, and I fell asleep, and he was someplace. I wasn't too worried about it, and I was going to find him, and then I was taken to the hospital, and I didn't return for 10 days, and nobody found him, and he's been missing for 11 weeks. And yesterday, I came back, walked in the apartment, and he was in the middle of the bedroom floor. I cannot tell you, we have looked everywhere for the snake. So hard we looked for him. I have no idea where he was, but he just suddenly showed up in the middle of the bedroom floor. And it was funny because he was in the middle of the bedroom, and for some reason, Carmen, our lizard, was on the dog bed about 2 feet away from him. So it's funny. I don't know if she had anything to do with the fact that he returned, but we are all very, very happy to see him. I love this snake. I adore my snake. Anyway, I woke him up for this live stream. I don't think this is going to be an extra long one because I'm waiting for a text. I have asked that my appointment be moved, and if they can move my appointment, then I'll make this the standard duration. And if not, I'm going to have to stop a little before 3 so I can get to my appointment. At any rate, lots of stuff to say. Per usual, so before I really get started, there are a lot of people on here already. So if you're watching this, what I usually do is I take these and I put them on YouTube. And my YouTube channel is The Ascension Arc. If you're watching me on Facebook, the YouTube channel is The Ascension Arc. And I would greatly appreciate it if you would go to YouTube, go to The Ascension Arc, and like and subscribe. I'm trying to build my subscription, build my following on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, watching this later, my name is Stephanie Arc Hogarth, and you can find me on Facebook by going to Stephanie Arc Hogarth. I'm trying to kind of link the two groups. And I'm available for private sessions. I would appreciate some private sessions if anybody wants one. Ascension coaching, etc. We're in this weird time. So many energies are shifting, and I work largely with groups. So I work only with groups. If you're new to the way I work, I do work with individuals, but every individual I work with is representative of a particular population, because really my specialty on the planet is the work that I do. I do large-scale orchestration of interdimensional harmonics and large-scale mass migrations of all of these different levels. So in the ascension process, there's still a group that the third dimension has been unlocked, but we still have a lot of people are still having the experience of the third dimension. Because we haven't shifted the belief system, and we don't have enough of the population operating differently yet. Oh, what I started to say was, if you go to, one of the benefits of watching my live streams on YouTube afterward is that you can you can adjust the speed. So if I pause, or if sometimes there are these gaps, if you can put me on like 1.75 or 1.5, it's just a way to speed up the listening of it. I know a lot of people who do that. I do that myself when I go take notes. So I just thought I would mention it. The energy's really running. So the energy has been coming through for the last 3 days. I've known about this live stream. It was coming up, and I know that there are certain things that need to be discussed. But I didn't have the time. I kept finding myself interrupted. There are a lot of recent developments in the energetic streams. So the energy is coming in and it's being adjusted by running through the collective, and then the collective runs through me and is further adjusted. And I was going to talk a little bit about the way that works. The primary triad in the Ascension arc, but one of my nose is running already. Damn, where's my tissue? Hang on. Yep. And then I think I'm also going to have to write a couple of posts about it, specifically related to the financial system and women's rights. Boy, are those two things connected. On an energetic platform, we're waiting. So one of the things is preventing the tipping point. You know, so many of us have, we've been waiting for so long for the tipping point. Oh my God. And we're working and working and working and working to get to this tipping point. So one of my jobs is to go way, way up in space, and I kind of, I deal with very large scale group energetics. And I look at where the tweaks are. And one of the interesting things to me is that I can tell by what's going on in my own life what energies are being adjusted. And I know why the energy is doing, why circumstances are the way they are. Because by looking at a given physical circumstance, a manifestation, an ailment, and circumstances, that gives me a lot of information about what the energy is doing. And what I need to address next. So right now, and also information was coming through all morning, pouring through. Calico stayed home today. She was very late to school because she had a sore throat this morning, and it's very hard to do a live stream with her in the house. She wound up going in hours late, but the whole time she was home, I was getting downloads and downloads, and I couldn't write fast enough. Regarding the financial system, women's rights, the issues that are preventing, like basically what's holding up the tipping point, what needs to happen next, and the way the Ascension arc, like I'm trying to figure out what I need to. Are you leaving? Where are you going? He's gonna. I hope he doesn't knock something over. Okay, whatever. So glad to have him back. Here, sweetie. Can you get through? So there's an entire kind of an increasing group, large number of us, Wayshowers on the front line, who are in varying degrees completely fucking broke. No money coming in, no bank. A lot of us don't have a bank account, or struggling like that. For a lot of us, I'm aware that I feel like I've already organized this wrong. There's a sequence. And even though in the fifth dimension, there is no more light army in the fifth dimension because there's no fighting. But there is okay, I'll put it this way. There's a way that our forces advance. There's a way by which we have to get this entire very mixed group of people up. And boy, howdy, do they differ. It's a real mixed group. How do I say this? I'm trying to figure out a way to organize the material because it's, I'm right. But I want to present it in such a way that, oh, God damn it, I feel like this is going to go long. Sorry, incoming. Here's the thing. If you're watching this, if I have to get cut off by this appointment, if I have to go, because I already feel like it's going to go longer than it needed to be, but I'm hoping they're going to call me back. If this gets cut off, I'm going to have to come back on later today and do another one. And then there's going to be a part A and a part B to this, I think. Because we're talking about the feminine force. In the Ascension arc, in the primary triad, there are 2 women and 1 man. Our roles, we occupy different positions, and these positions do specific things. They carry, each one of us is the primary custodian for a specific group. And the way we interact, and we also, we're a fractal. So it's a triangle. The way we interact has an effect. If you can imagine a triangular, let's say it's a pen. It's not a pen, but let's say it's a pen. And in that pen are trios, you know, like 100 other trios of 2 women and a man. It's a fractal system. And the way that works, it's a way of, boy, sorry, I know this is badly organized, which is too bad because in reality, it's really quite organized and there's a sequence and it runs like clockwork when it's running. There's actually a way that there's a mechanism by which this occurs, by which energies are exchanged. And I don't want to talk too much about, I do want to talk about the way the arc runs. The mechanics of it. And the place where I get into difficulty is because sometimes I need to refer back to other things that you may or may not have seen, the previous live streams, etc. The purpose of the Ascension arc, I know I've said this before, but the whole purpose of the Ascension arc, which is an energetic construct made by extraterrestrial beings, and we have worked together through history, very long standing, to create an energized construct that runs through us, because you can't inflict something on another. That's a universal law. You don't have the right to inflict something on populations unless you have done it to ask someone else to do something that you yourself have not already gone through. So we incarnated into Earth, into physical vessels, to experience the same thing that our populations do. And then the way we interact, it's kind of like a cog. And because our energetic presence is combined and it's kind of like it's half artificial and half biological, but a lot of it is natural, organic circuitry. There's some technological help also, but for example, when Josh and I came down, we crossed energetic streams. So there's a whole ton of crossing that has happened, that we did that intentionally, and we did it through crossing certain energetic streams that go through our children, that pass between lineages. We did this very deliberately in order to get the collective energy to mobilized to do certain things, largely toward feminine equality. The primary purpose, even though it's going to affect the entire planet, help the ascension of the entire planet, the large-scale problem that we had in the overall was that the whole planet was backwards, because there was an overabundance of masculine energy and nothing was moving. They were all retarded. They were retarded men. And the feminine energy was so suppressed that the entire planet was not going to reach a balanced place before doomsday. That's basically, I don't like the word doomsday, but before the ascension window. Basically, you have a window, and you have to have a balanced masculine and feminine energy overall for the planet. And the feminine force, the feminine energy, was so underrated. So what's the word I'm looking for? It's underrated is not even it. It's reviled, suppressed, not valued. They don't see the value. They didn't see the value in it. And as a consequence, their entire planet was going to die again. So we came in and constructed, so basically there's this big committee, like the Council of Balance, and they say, how are we going to fix this problem? What can be done? And there's a council in the 12th dimension, overseen by 12 beings. And there was a plan created through history designed to accelerate the development. Like how could, and it's weird because you have to, what you really want to do is take hands off and have them make their own choices. But we didn't have that option the way we would normally run it, because they were so retarded. They really were. So you can't do your first choice because you have to boost them along as much as possible. So we created this device that would give them kind of I always use this example. You know those moving sidewalks in an airport, that will take you a long distance? This would be like it would do the equivalent of moving them much further, but it's like a moving sidewalk that only moves if you step. So because we also have to take into consideration their own preferences. You have to honor free choice, but you also have to get everybody to give you their power. Like not every agenda here has been malevolent. There's, you know, like, yes, there are archonic forces and etc. And there's this big hubbub, you know, don't give anyone your power. That's true. Now you need to take your power back. But there was a time when, for a long period in time, there were certain things in place that were actually really pretty useful. It was amazing how backwards they were. Like normally you wouldn't even want to come down to a planet and give a population commandments, for example. Like that's kind of taking away your free will. I'm gonna, you know, it's kind of like a threat. But we actually, we even came down and like gave them the rules. You know, these are the boundaries. Don't kill your brother. Don't steal. Don't rape. And for a while, the conflict was actually toward a purpose. Wars were toward a purpose. Because war will actually produce a lot more growth than stagnation will. When it's something that's stagnant, there's no growth at all. So the first thing we had to do was have people develop a leaning in some direction, a side. Pick a side. I don't care what side you go to. You're going to learn in that direction. You're going to learn in that direction. Choose a side, but choose something. Develop your own capacity to have a preference. So, and then you begin to separate the wheat from the chaff. You hope that they start to learn. But over time, so anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is already nothing like what I had come on intending and wanting to talk about. Damn. In the Ascension arc, in the primary triad, there are 2 women and 1 man, because at this juncture, because we take it apart and put it back together throughout history. There's sometimes you need to change players. Like when we first put the thing together, it was 3 men. And the reason it was 3 men, it was because, oh, my hair's bothering me. Was because at that time, the planet was so male dominated that you couldn't have a woman in any position at all. The entire point was to get it from a place of being heavily male dominated and also not developing. During the King David lifetime, King David, Jonathan, and Saul were the first male trio of the Ascension arc. There's a caveat. There's a it has been utilized at other times, but in my own lineage, I've been told that I'm supposed to stick to these particular lifetimes and talk about this. So I'm only talking about the ones that, anyway, they told me to stick to my own lineage. I have been a part of it at other times, but for some reason, the ones that they've told me to utilize as examples, that's why. Because of the 3 thank you. Because of the 3 individuals that are currently holding the 3 primary positions. We were also in the Joan of Arc lifetime. We were also in the Queen Esther, Vashti and Xerxes lifetime. And then we were also King David, Solomon, and King David, sorry. King David, Jonathan, Saul. Yeah. And because it's the same trio of individual people this time, that's what they want me to talk about. So right now, wait, hang on a minute. Let me go back. In the Queen Esther lifetime, hang on a minute. How do I organize this material? Already, this is nothing like what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about feminism, the rise of the feminine force, and what we're trying to achieve. Because there's a way that we have orchestrated the interplay of forces. So that's why I'm talking about it, because I'm the one who oversees the interplay of energetic forces, because I can go back, I can take a look at the big picture, and I know I can see what the energetic forces are doing and why by tweaking. It's very linked to forces of magic. And I can go, and also I work largely with very large scale energies and interdimensional harmonics, so I can go into the energy streams and tweak things and see what's going to produce what, and what needs to be adjusted from out in space in order to produce a result that will move energy toward a given purpose. Such as, why the fuck haven't we passed the ERA? Because that's really, the reason is energy has been misapplied because people don't know the way it works. And they can fight and fight and fight and fight in courts, etc., but it will never, ever, ever, ever work until the large scale energetic dynamics are adjusted. We need to have a, we're not going to be able to get the planet up until there is more reverence, appreciation of the feminine on the planet. There's a way that will work, and there's a way that it's being mishandled. And it's what we need to get is more generosity, more flow, and more appreciation toward the space, and get the fear and the, so, oh God, this is not at all the way I wanted to talk about this. There's a, hang on a minute. How are we doing on time? This is already way 28 minutes. There's a there's strata. There is an organized sequence of strategy. There's an organized strategy by which the feminine force will achieve equality in the fifth dimension. So we have been organizing these things. They're all running simultaneously. This also, so when we look at the issue of women's rights and equality altogether, issues surrounding, issues of freedom, sovereignty, feminine sovereignty, What I'm looking at is what needs to be adjusted through history. And sometimes the energy is really running. Can you feel that? It's really, it's running very quickly. Very often the problems are nothing the way they appear. We need to honor the space. Appreciate the vacancy, appreciate the space as being an asset. And when we say, when so many of us have been indoctrinated that it is better to give than to receive. No, they're the same thing. I know I've touched on this before, and I should probably write about it. If I can edit it that. So one of the things that I'm seeing, how do I organize this material? Damn it. So there's you know that not everyone is, even though we're all ascending, so many of us are in different strata. And to one degree or another, we have already left the third dimensional system. I've been unplugged from 3 completely. Nothing in 3 will work for me. Nothing does. My energy is so misaligned. My guides had said that I must own my whole focus now. 100% of my focus needs to be on establishing, building, creating the 5th dimensional architecture. Hold that space. That's a space where, so on one hand, it can be said, and I've seen this and I don't disagree with it at all, that the 5th dimension already exists. All you have to do is put yourself in a high vibrational state and you're there. And it's not like it's a place, it's not a different thing. It's a vibrational range. And if you can reach that, everything will shift. And that's fine. So what usually happens is that if you are someone, I'm thinking a couple of people particularly, who they can get themselves into a into a 5D space, and usually they will bounce up and down for quite a while. And we need those people. We need to we need as many people to go up to 5 as possible. But it's very difficult right now to maintain it 100% of the time, because the third dimensional density is still so tangible and so in your face. There's like a toppling that goes. It's very unstable. It's like from 3 to 5, and you try to go back up to 5, but you're yanked back into 3, and that's just because there's a waving of energies. And there's still a predominantly 3D focus for most people. So in the 5th dimension, right now, because it's less tangible, it's semi-solid, you have to be able to put your mind, have the mental space of the intangible carry more energetic weight than something that's right, like in your hand. So that's still very difficult for a lot of people. And you get bashed for it a lot if you do it. They'll call you crazy. They'll put you in a hospital. They'll tell you need medication. They'll call you delusional. We actually need much more of that. we've taken a lot. In terms of strategy of the light army, I use that term because I'm using that term, but in the fifth dimension, it's no longer an army, and it's much more of an orchestration. It's an orchestra. But the game is similar. You're orchestrating, you're arranging groups to do certain things at certain times, and then one person, like me, not just one person. In the fifth dimension, it's not one person. In the fifth dimension, it's quite rotational and a lot of hand over hand exchange of responsibilities. So it's much nicer. I like it a lot. But I'm using, just because I am, for the time being, in the light army, there would be like a conductor who orchestrates the way these things play out, orchestrates the piece of music. You go now, you go now, you go now, now we all go for a little bit. And it's very similar to a large-scale migration or an army. There's a way different groups have to move, and by groups, I mean energy, too. It's like you carry this particular quality of energy, and we need to get this degree of strength over to that. And you guys need to open it up and, just tone it down and receive some of this quality. It's all about balancing qualities. In some ways, it's like cooking or painting. And the whole goal is just like, we need to get everyone balanced, authentic, playing well with one another. You can go up there if you want. Where's our snake? Can't lose him again. Wait a minute. Where are you, baby? Kenji? Dear God in heaven, if I lose you, I'll be upset. Seriously, where's my snake? Oh my God, wait a minute. Seriously, I did not lose my snake. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Hang on a minute. Kenji, you are not lost. Well, that would be truly awful if I lost him. I don't actually know where he is. I wish I had a child here to look for my snake. You can't have gone that far. Well, that'll teach me. That's true. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's horrible. I'll find him. At least I know if he was gone for 11 weeks. Oh, that's horrible. Oh, Kenji, come back. Hi, Aaron. Aaron, I think I just lost my snake. Oh my God, that's awful. On his return, his triumphant return. Okay, hang on. Oh no! Oh my God! Oh, hi, oh, holy crap! Whoa! Hi, dude. Oh wow! Hang on. No, he's here. Oh, fuck you! Really? Oh my God! Wait! Wait! Oh my God! Hang on a second. Oh, let go. Good God, let go of this. That was something I did not expect this from you. No, I didn't. I'm pretty impressed that you did it, though. Come on. No, get out. No, don't you dare. Kenji, I swear to God. Come on, Sweet Pete. Oh, crap. Just a minute. This is fascinating. He's stuck in it. Jeez Louise. Oh, crap. Well, that's busted. All right. I'm going to go put him down for a minute. Well, he was in the tabletop tree all the way up at the top, and the top broke. And now I've got a broken money tree. I'm just glad you're safe. I'm glad you're home. I missed you. That was funny. Okay, well, that's really too bad that broke, but it'll grow back. This thing grows like crazy. Now there are leaves all over. Where was I? Now I look disheveled. Hi, you guys. All right. So I was talking about, before I interrupted myself, dear me. I was talking about energetic forces. Hang on. So there's a way, thank you. There's a way that we have orchestrated different groups to advance. Certain things have to move before certain other things. And one of the things that's happening now is there's a group of us who are 48 stranders. Actually, there's a large group of us. I feel like I shouldn't talk too much about the 48 strands, but it's remarkable to me, though, because those people I know who are other 48 stranders, we're doing the same thing. And a lot of other like 24 stranders are doing the same thing. And by that I mean those of us who have cleared out that much. We have like 48 or 24 strands already running. So many of us, we've been completely unplugged from the third dimensional everything. Like, we don't fit in 3D anymore, not at all. We never did, but now we can't fake it. We don't have jobs, and almost all of us, and in fact, there's this huge swath of people that it's in various degrees of, I will call it financial struggle. But here's the thing. What I really wanted to say is that there's a strategy to this. It's a portion of, it's trying to move into vacancy, into like it's okay, 0 point living. You know how like the walk of trust. The walk of trust, or like walking on water, I've talked about this a lot. The whole idea of walking on water, where you go forward and you trust that something will support you, even though there's no tangible evidence yet that anything is there. The walk of trust is when you're living in a state of 0 point, where rather than, so I'm explaining this badly. So there's a big difference between the third dimensional construct of financial security, which will say everyone needs X amount of dollars. You should have X amount to in your savings account or in a retirement account, because that represents tangible security for your old age, because there's a belief that that represents like your safety. And we've been taught that by doing this, we will put our trust in an external source that's tangible and also has it's linked to our belief in the timeline. So these things are all connected. Getting past the belief, so getting out of the third dimension, the third dimensional experience. We're not anchored there anymore, but most people are still replaying it and doing it over and over and over. They're reinforcing it with all of their energy. They're reinforcing it with their belief system. They're reinforcing it with their finances. If you take, so money is energy. So if you spend a lot of time planning for your retirement in a state of worry and concern, that's fear energy that's coming from you with your energetic signature attached to it. And then you have money, which is, it's a tangible bit of energy also. And then you have this sacred choice point. What am I going to do with it? And you place it in a retirement fund out of fear of lack. So I'm not saying that's the only way this could go, but that's what's true for a lot of people. So basically, when you do that from a place of fear, and then you want to hold on to it also from a place of fear, and you want to flow as little as possible, spend as little as possible, because you might need it someday. So you're reinforcing the fear with a lot of this, with your chunk money, and you're placing it in a place of stasis, a holding tank, like a bank that's an institution, a traditional institution, which is a holding pen, and they will keep it safe because you're putting all of your faith in that. So that is definitely old model. But you have to know, and what people don't know is that when you do that, that casts your vote for what you want to keep. So if we're waiting for the tipping point, when will Earth ascend? Well, when there's more trust than fear. Your own energetic signature is attached to all of your actions, all of your choices, and it's not like we have to vote specifically because you already voted. So the Ascension arc was designed to kind of, it works a little bit like democracy. Like when it was designed, when it was invented, put together, we had to figure out a way. It's like you want something that is basically democratic, where you want to respect free choice, but at that time you had to take into consideration that you don't have a free populace because they've been brainwashed, poisoned by, at this point, they've been chemically harmed and suppressed to such a degree that they're not in a position to actually choose for themselves, because their belief patterns, they've been brainwashed and unfairly conditioned, and they don't actually know all the facts. And because they were so retarded as a population, there wasn't enough time to get them to a place where it was appropriate to give them all the facts, because they would you can't introduce ideas too soon, because you're going to harm your people. If it's too soon, you are. So we had to, so it's kind of like you see sometimes these arguments like, well, if aliens exist, why don't they just land on the White House lawn? Or why don't they, you can't take people's free choice away from them. And you also, the way we came in was to go in through stories, so that, because you have to bypass the belief barrier. You don't want to shock them and traumatize them to such a degree. So here's the thing, spiritual maturity, and boy, am I on like 8 different topics. Damn it. Spiritual maturity and physical maturity. There's a maturation, there's a natural maturation process that must be respected. You don't want to force either thing. You don't want to force, so it's so interesting to me that issues of pedophilia and outrage over forces always work together. They always work together. You can't pull on just one side of a rubber band. And there was a force field put around in the Ascension arc. There was a force field that where the 2 sides have to open simultaneously. The whole issue of public vaginal exams to see if I was still a virgin in that lifetime. Every time I was moved, they had this other exam, and you would think that that those things have nothing to, you know, what does that have to do with ET disclosure or awakening now? That happened, you know, 600 years ago. If you go outside of time, we're dealing with issues of premature physical development, so the issues of forced penetration is basically what we're looking at. There's kind of this balancing where you have to, what we're trying to balance, knowing that you cannot pull on just one side of a rubber band. So we're trying to awaken the crown chakra with the least amount of trauma, but time is actually of the essence. Like you're not going to get the development, you're not going to get the harvest. We need to get information into the crown chakra of this sleeping population who are basically spiritual infants. And they don't want to know. They would prefer to remain asleep. They would prefer that closed. It totally goes to there's an opposing force to that. And one of the issues on the Council of Balance is that you don't have the right to do just something just on this side. The other side is going to go somewhere. I really orchestrated this talk badly. So the issues of premature penetration of children, the physical bodies of children, that's directly related to how fast we can disclose, like the cosmic blast coming in from the crown chakra. It's kind of like on the top side, we want to get the information in as soon as possible. And on the lower side, those in the physical realm want to get up into the children as quickly as possible. These forces work together, trying to balance, and they can't do anything but that. So the Council of Balance is the Council of Balance, not the Council of Conquer. You might have a strong preference for your own side, but that is simply not the way it works. So I can understand. I'm not saying I'm in favor of pedophilia at all. Of course not. But I can understand why certain things are developing the way they are. And we have, on the top side, like my population is coming down, and I'm all about trying to get information into the heads of people as quickly as possible. my preference is to be very, it would be self-indulgent of me, but is to, you know, like in 2013, when I had a Kundalini awakening, full awakening, it felt like I was hit by a bolt of lightning. And like my head exploded, and there was this just enormous blast of light. And I suddenly knew that, but it was very, very, very traumatic. And I suddenly knew too much. It was too much too soon, and I wasn't prepared. And that has a lot to do with, I know that's what it's going to be. I know that I went through my experience like that because it's going to be like that for the population. So that one of the things that happens is that if you're on the Council of Balance, we keep at a minimum of 2 people on the incarnated. 2 members of the Council of Balance are incarnated, and we have to go through whatever our group. It basically, if you make somebody do it, if you have elected that your group is going to undergo this experience, you go through it too. You don't have the right to say, okay, I'm going to inflict this on this group. I've made this decision for you on your behalf. Oh, please, I'm going to put the snake down. No, don't do it, Kenji. You are a curious boy. I love this snake. Oh, we really did break this tree. That's too bad. Whoop. That's too bad. It's funny, my money tree is broken. You know, talk about finances and respecting the feminine force. How am I doing on time? Oh, all right, we're fine. So you don't have the right to do that. I was thinking, so this was one of the things I was going to talk about, was that this is basically the way the Earth's awakening is going to go. And then I have to go back and talk about money and respecting women. And wow, this is very disorganized. Sorry. So in terms of the cosmic blast, do I want to talk about this now? In terms of the cosmic blast that we're all expecting, yeah. So I have said that in my own experience of Kundalini rising, there are 33 vertebrae in the back. I know I've said this before. As your Kundalini, once you have a Kundalini rising catalyst, the energy moves, which it feels very much like sexual energy. It's basically the same thing, and it will rise up your spine over a period of time. Most people experience Kundalini rising, but they haven't experienced the full awakening yet. I experienced the full awakening in 2013. When people have a Kundalini experience that goes up very, very quickly, it's usually because in their past incarnations, they have achieved that level before. So it goes up much faster. And it's kind of like mercury in a thermometer. And then when it reaches the base of your skull, the circuit is completed, and there's an energetic event that's extremely, mine was extremely intense. And so you start out from the idea of individuation, like the drop. They say that Kundalini awakening is when the drop becomes the ocean. And that was absolutely my experience. That at the base of your spine, that's where you have the experience of separation. And with every vertebra that it goes up your back, you get a new level of awareness, which really is pretty amazing. And I'm going to talk about that more in depth a different day. But as it goes up, it's kind of like you yourself have the experience of being more and more and more. And then when it hits the base of your spine, the drop becomes the ocean, and you're suddenly connected to everything. You suddenly you lose the experience of separation. You realize suddenly that you no longer have the experience of individuation, separateness. All of a sudden you see everything else. So if you extend this to the earth is going through a process of graduated awakening. And little by little by little, more and more people are awakening or rising, like their Kundalini is beginning to rise, they're beginning to look around. And there's going to be a point where there's a tipping point when enough people have reached this point. It's kind of like the equivalent of the Earth's spine. We're going to get a tipping point. And when enough people carry enough light energy that the event like that wouldn't kill us, it's still going to kill a lot of people. I don't mean we're going to have bodies, but a lot of souls are going to leave. There's going to be a huge number of walk-ins. But basically, the drop that is the Earth, the third dimensional Earth that believed that it was separate in the universe, believed that there's no other life, and now we're beginning to think, there's probably other life. Okay, there's a little bit of life. We discovered microscopic evidence of microscopic life on Mars or whatever. But there are a lot of stories now about alien contact. We certainly see a lot of that in collective consciousness because it's always going to happen. The awareness, the mental realm, the psychic realm is going to get it first. It's basically hovering in basically the realization, the mass disclosure, the realness of that it's going to drop into reality when the population at large reaches that point. There's a tipping point where it's like the Earth being the drop that is unable to see tangible evidence, really, not really. I mean, it's filtered in, but you have to be kind of on the fringe of society, follow Gaia, etc. There's going to be this thing where it's going to be known by everybody, and all of a sudden we're going to be able to see ships everywhere. They were always around, but we didn't have the belief system that allowed for it. When you're a third dimensional planet, you think you think that life doesn't exist elsewhere because it's all about you. You think you're an individual. If only life exists. I wonder if life exists someplace else. There's going to be a tipping point. And not only have aliens always been around, it's going to suddenly become an everyday occurrence. But that's not what I was going to talk. What was I talking about? So honoring the feminine force. There has been a movement over a very long period of time, thousands of years, to adjust the energies of the planet. There are holding pens in the Ascension arc, and they're like custodians of each pen. And we basically run all of the energy through our bodies, and then according to our own, basically the the population is going to do basically what we do, but it's not unfair because they can also affect us. Like if we want to do something and they were bitterly opposed to it, we would feel a tug and we wouldn't be able to do it. Mostly our energy affects the sleepers, who are fair game. Like the Ascension arc was designed to help assist the sleeping population to go with their own preferences, carry them to where they needed to be. Basically, it was an assist. Like, you've been unfairly suppressed. We're going to get in there and we're going to carry you to where you say you want to go. And for every, take one step toward the gods and they take 10 toward you. It's just like that. It's like on the moving sidewalk. You take one step and you're going to move 10 steps. We're going to move you. You just have to say where you want to go. And in the Ascension arc, it's like this energetic construct. So I carry a number of different populations. In the primary triad, we're the same triad. There are a lot of beings in the Ascension arc, but in the primary triad, we're the same people that were in the Queen Esther lifetime. If you know anything about Queen Esther, so it's all about feminine equality, right? I've got to turn this on 1 second. Feminine equality. We all have different specialties. There are certain things that need to happen. And one interesting thing is that you can, from a position of the Council of Balance, you can go outside of time and you can make an adjustment from, if you see how the population is nearing like the finish line, like nearing the this 11 gateway, and you can say, okay, we're gonna have to adjust something way back here to get a different result up there. That's one of the things that I do. So in the primary triad, oh, I should also say this. So in the primary triad, we use this triad in, nope, oh, 1 second. In the primary triad, we used, 1 second. It was operational in the Joan of Arc lifetime too, where I was Joan of Arc and Carmen was Isabeau of Bavaria. And then Josh was King Charles VI. If you look at those stories, what we did and what the aims were, so it doesn't always go the way you wanted it to, and you look at that triad and what the aim of the population, or what you look a little bit about, I'm saying this so badly. You look at those people in their positions, and then you look at the same group of people, because it was us, Queen Esther, Queen Vashti, and King Xerxes. He's also called Ahasuerus. What we're trying to do over time is adjust specific energetic forces. We're trying to get certain things to move, certain institutions either fortified or broken. And we develop these skill sets over time so that we can go back into a situation. You say, I'm going to get it this time. I'm the person who specializes in this thing, and I'm going to hold this position again because I'm good at it. And also we have the energetic structure running between us too. It runs through our bodies. So in the Queen Esther lifetime, Queen Esther was not the first queen. It was King Ahasuerus, also known as Xerxes, and his first queen was Queen Vashti, who is underappreciated. I think she's underrated for what she did. So particularly when we're talking about women's rights and women's issues. So she really got shafted in that life. But then we're going to watch what happens if you take this issue with her in Queen Vashti. You can look it up in the Bible. We'll go to the book of Esther. Queen Vashti was summoned to the king's banquet. King was having a banquet, and they had a lot of banquets in that story. Banquets all over. I won't tell you the entire story, but basically he was having a banquet that was all men, and he summoned his queen so they actually were happy together. At that time, this is all about ascension, actually. You wouldn't think so, but it is. It's all about taking the rules of the goddamn establishment, which are oppressive and stupid. Oppressive and stupid, but for some reason adhered to by those who are in charge. Like, you'll take a king, you'll think, well, you can make a new law. But no, at that time, and also in this time, there were certain laws of the realm which were so rigid that even the king had no choice but to obey. It's kind of like the British monarchy. Like, no, you have to go do this stupid thing, and we all hate it, but we're all doing it anyway. And it's tradition. Tradition says that you may not break this law. So he's at the banquet, and some of his friends say, "Summon your wife. Call your wife." And he calls his wife, and he wants her to come and something like dance naked or like show yourself in front of all the men. He wants to show her off, or he was goaded to do so. It depends on what version you read. At any rate, she says she's having a banquet of her own, because this is all about getting feminism into, so that there's equality. Basically, it's not something that's particularly defiant. It's just fucking equality. And that's really why the Ascension arc is, because the planet's retarded. And you don't respect women, you don't respect so many things, and so you're going to die unless you do this thing. At any rate, she was having her own banquet, and she said no. And I don't know how she said it, but at the banquet, somebody comes back and says she's refused. And there was a law. So basically, the place goes up in an uproar, because in front of everybody, she has refused her husband. And because of that, he has no choice. So there's a law that says women must obey their husbands. So defying that was huge, particularly to do it in front of everybody else. He did. So my own understanding is that the law says that you will do this, or you will you have no choice. You've got to obey your husband. So she says no, and therefore all of the other men around him say, well, if you allow that, you're going to look weak. You're going to look weak if you do that, if you allow her to do that. So he makes this stupid sacrifice. It would have been a better thing, a stronger thing, a stronger, more decisive thing if he had said, handled it a different way, where he could have kept his queen and also at any rate, that's not what happened. It's very interesting, though, the reason it went down the way. So I was going to talk about the reason it went down the way it did. Because every force evolves a form. And I want to talk about that in a minute. At any rate, the story goes, he has no choice, but basically no choice according to the law. According to the law of the land, he has no choice but to banish her. So she didn't make out very well in that lifetime. She was banished for saying no, and sent packing from the kingdom. So, so long story short, let me change this around. He winds up getting another queen, and that was me. But I want to talk about, that was Queen Esther. But I want to talk, and who has a different story. But what I really wanted to talk about is the way we have different energies, not right now. We have different energies that we bring to the table. We govern certain decisions, certain avenues that are our jurisdiction. What hers is, she was Vashti in that lifetime, and she was Isabeau of Bavaria in the Joan of Arc lifetime when I was Joan of Arc. Her feminine energy is the one that, and she also governs, so I'm always talking about that diagram where here's the third dimension. She governs the third and fourth dimension. She governs the control structure. Her jurisdiction is the physical body and creation, and her energy is all about, has the characteristic of being very controlling. It's usually it's very possessive. It's very, I don't mean her as a person. I mean, that's the quality of that energetic space, has these particular things that will always produce certain forms. So within this realm, or within this energetic stream, you're going to get certain circumstances that are based in laws that must be upheld, possession, ownership, something rigidly adhered to. And it's the realm of the personal individual identity that says mine and no sharing. So that's interesting, mine and no sharing, which is what Vashti did. This is my body. It goes to, so it's the realm of the physical and embodiment. So we have needed to have that, to have choice. Women's body issues being maintained by them. This is my body, and I'm going to make the decision for myself. And it kind of has the jurisdiction of the control system. Like this is my boundary. So her energy does that very much. It's designed to do that. And that's why it was Vashti who did that. But because it's all about boundaries and possession and something that must be adhered to, there's no wafting. It's very solid in that. Because it was a structural thing, when that energy combines with the energy of the king, you get a non-negotiable law that cannot be budged. Do you understand? It's something, it's like cooking. It's a little bit like cooking, or it's like you combine certain things. When these two energies come together, you're going to get a particular thing. If you want a different result, you're going to have to adjust the energy within this so that it makes something different. Doesn't mean you can't have a lot of overlap, but if you have something that is non-negotiable and possessed and held by one, and rigid, and it's all about form, something that is controlled, then the king who his realm is the masculine law and also the society, social structures. So he's kind of like this straddling thing where he's operating in the realm of a held identity, but also a population that is governed. But it's very interesting that in his case, and this would be Josh in this lifetime, he's got the capacity to do both things. But if, his challenge will be to, how do I live within the law? How do I live within the law? And also live within the law if it's stupid. Like, change it. No. So we see what happens if you go back to the that lifetime with Queen Esther. After Vashti was kicked out, there were a whole bunch of maidens from the realm gathered up and trained for, kidnapped, trained for a year on how to please the king, potentially, how to obey. There's these social protocols, how to look, how to act, and then he tries them all out and selects one. Isn't that nice? So that's how Queen Esther became queen. But there wasn't too much of an interview process in terms of what's your background. So didn't know that I was Jewish. And there was a point, so if you follow this story, there's a point that, how am I doing on time? Let me see. Okay. There's a point, oh my God. There's a point where, so we're still talking about changing laws. So first, Vashti was about female autonomy. And because those energies interacted in such a way, it was like kicked out the door along with a queen. So he has another queen, Queen Esther, and her whole thing is that she's a Jew also, and the Jews are scheduled for slaughter. But my population, or I'm sorry, the energy that I carry has to do with getting populations to fight for themselves and toward their own empowerment, change and freedom. You know, fight for your own empowerment toward a positive change for the empowerment of anyone, toward freedom. So I did that when I was with Esther, and I did that with Joan of Arc. I did that with David too. There's a conquering force that's bullying you. You need to rise up and say no. And this is how you find your way to freedom. But it's about changing the dominant paradigm. If you can't change it, and you can't change it by deferring to it, you're going to have to go outside the dominant structure. But what I find interesting is that this is the energy that I carry. So in the Queen Esther lifetime, he had already yielded to a law that he didn't like because, well, what can I do? The law is the law. I'm powerless to change it, even though I'm king. Well, if you can't change it, who can? But what I find interesting is that, my only point is that I want to point out that Vashti's energy, which was solitary and carries certain qualities, I guess that's my point. Vashti's energy carries certain qualities that fortify the individual. They fortify rather than flow. They lock something in as opposed to sending it forward. Because they locked something in, the king's decision in her case was fortified by the addition of a a force that was kind of in lockdown mode. Do you understand? It's like the king had certain qualities, and her energy solidified his inability to act in a way toward change. When she was out, when I came in, my energy provides a different thing. My energy provides an uprising and a flow and change. It motivates change and flow forward. Therefore, this happened instead. So if you're familiar with the with this story, Queen Esther discovered. I'm shortening this dramatically. You can go look it up. It's the Book of Esther. And there's banquets are involved too. I'm not going to get too much into it. At any rate, very, very long story short. It is a good story that you can go watch several versions of the movie. It's a pretty decent story. The king changes the law. He winds up changing the law because she goes to him and, so here's the thing. This is an important part. In that lifetime, women were not, so even as queen, the law said you must not you can't speak to the king without being spoken to. So he hadn't seen me in about 30 days. And I found out that my people were about to be slaughtered. And I wanted to approach him to ask him not to do it. Do so, or get them to fight, this is horrible. And if you kill all the Jews in the kingdom, you're going to have to kill me too. So the thing that happened was that I broke the law too. I broke the law and said, I'm going to approach him and speak to him anyway. And I did, but there was a different result. This being the entire reason I'm telling the story. Vashti broke the law and didn't speak to him, didn't give him what he wanted. So there was no movement. There was an entrenchment. So that energy combined with his in one way, and she got booted out. In comes Esther, who breaks the law too. But this time, the energy was different. The energetic signature went forward to break the law and went to him and said, I'm giving you this. I'm speaking to you even though I'm not supposed to. So there's a delivery of an energetic signature. It combines with the king's energy differently. The qualities were different, and as a consequence, there was a different result where it's kind of like my willingness to do it, but with an outgoing energy adds to him the ability to act and move on his own behalf as well. Did you get it? So he breaks the law. He's able to change the law. So it's something like movement is required for change to happen. If you start off on the energetic footprint of no and backing something into a place of solidity, you're not going to get change. That said, I still think she was right. We're still not there yet. Hang on a minute. We're going to get it though. So the energies combine in particular ways. There's an algebra to the, all of the qualities of each of these groups are their own cluster of signatures. There's like a mini harmonic of each one. And so you need to be able to read them and say, okay, we're going to do this over here because it's going to cancel this thing out in order to kind of navigate a result for an entire group of people. So if you follow the same group of people to the Joan of Arc lifetime, it was still very much the same thing, where Carmen's energy as Isabeau of Bavaria does the same. It's designed to. My energy goes out very strongly, and it's designed toward propulsion. That's what it's supposed to do. I'm supposed to be the cosmic water pick, the thing that is like the engine, but it provides a great deal of circular movement, and you can apply it to certain things. Her energy goes in, and you can apply that for you. Both are needed. I'm not saying you don't need, boundaries. You do. You just need to do. You need to know how to manage all of that. So and then in this lifetime too, which I won't talk about a lot, but Josh's energy, one of the things that he comes down to do is work with social laws, social expectations, laws, sometimes public, like what will people think, issues of that, like what are the ramifications of this? If I do this, what will happen? Public opinion, but it's more like the personal, how to balance these two things between not caring and just doing what you want, toward freedom, versus managing like a public image, like a king would have this problem, this issue, not wanting to rock the boat because it could, cause some problem in court or something like that. Whereas my energy comes in like a herd of buffalo. Like, all right, tidal wave all around. So issues of, oh boy, this took a turn. What time is it? Okay. I'll try not to get too caught off guard, off topic. Issues of there's a transfer of power happening right now. Oh God, my hair is driving me crazy. Always happens on these things. God. So I know it seems like, what does this have to do with the price of beans? And how we started out talking about the financial system, and now you're talking about Joan of Arc, and you're talking about Vashti, and you're talking about, but so here's the thing. Getting feminine energy revered on this planet. There are a whole bunch of things, corrupted patterns that have been in place. All of these issues are intertwined. I actually don't, what I'm probably going to do is make a list and come on back. Stop. I'll try to, issues of shaming the receiver. We've been trying to work our way out of corrupted feminine patterns. So one of the things that happens when you're a governing, that's the wrong word, but kind of a custodial figure in the Ascension arc is that energies from, like, disgusting energy from the population that have been corrupted, and belief systems from the populace that we know we have to get out of there, like the feminine being lesser. It's like this dark goo. It really is. It's like this dark, toxic, poisonous, really, really thick substance. And it's like you have to, get all of that crap out of there. So there are a lot of things related to the feminine that have completely corrupted our belief systems around the divine feminine, but because it doesn't seem like it's related to the feminine necessarily, it seems like it shouldn't have, one thing doesn't have anything to do with the other. Sometimes you don't see how pervasive a belief in one thing could be affecting this other thing. And so there's a reason that so many of us light workers specifically are broke right now. And it's because we need to be fearless and remain in an all-loving state and remain fearless and unapologetic about having no money. We need to be in a position to receive without apology, to be in a state of receivership without apology, to be in a state of being in a space so that we have more energetic weight. That's the word I wanted. So those of us who have very, very large energetic fields, many of us are completely broke. And so what I'm hearing from a lot of people is, well, if you could manifest something, why don't you just manifest something different? Or if they're not snotty, they're still condescending. Like, well, you can just manifest all the, manifest yourself, whatever, an amount of money if you want, or if you're so good at manifesting, or if you're so powerful, why don't you do this and this and this and this? There's a reason that a lot of us are soul, even if on a personal level, we might really want that. Like personally, I really do need some more money. I really, really, really do. The walk of trust involves staying at 0 point for very long periods of time towards a purpose. Not everyone can go to 0 point and like have no money at all without going into terror. But so how are you supposed to go into vacancy or go kind of embody the walk of trust and stay in the space while being completely peaceful and manifesting just what you need as you need it? I'm not saying that we won't ever have money on the other side or won't ever have more substance in form on the other side. But there are a lot of us right now who are in a position, albeit reluctantly, like we've got virtually no food at all in the house right now. I think I have $10 that I couldn't get to the grocery store if I wanted to. My car's on empty. But the walk of trust and 0 point, staying in there for a long time, which a lot of us are doing it. One thing we're doing is breaking through the fear barrier. So one of the reasons why we're like, we haven't been going to 5 and we're like, where's the tipping point? One of the reasons we haven't gone over the tipping point en masse is because people hit the fear barrier and they're like, I'm afraid to do that. I'm afraid to, so they step back. They want to, but they're afraid. There's a certain quantifiable amount of energy that is, it's kind of like this huge thing of sandbags. Like we can't go over because there's this energetic fear in the way. Mostly it's fear. And because we're working in a collective, we feel the fear for one another. So I might be able to do it, but a lot of my people are still terrified and they're afraid to cross. And there's been a lot of brainwashing. Basically the problem is you have more fear than you do love. You have more fear than you do trust that God will take care of you, or the trust that someone will love you and support you. So I was speaking. So it directly goes to how certain things perpetuate the lack of equality, particularly with finances. One of the hidden ways that the feminine energy was shamed, was suppressed. It was suppressed. Did they mean to do this? I don't know, but I know probably a lot of the people who were indoctrinated this way, if you can see your way past it, you might want to change your thinking. The whole idea that it is better to give than to receive, that's not true. It's equal. It's equally good to give and receive. They actually need to be equal. The receiving force is the feminine force. That doesn't mean that we're not doing half the work. And each person has, masculine and feminine sides to them. We really need to have this balanced in every single individual. It should be balanced equally between giving and receiving. But there's a lot of very often. So if the feminine force is the side that receives, there are kind of predictable, conditioned interactions between certain forces and certain other forces. And it's these conditioned responses that must be adjusted en masse in order for things like the ERA to be passed, which the ERA is never going to be anything but a response to an energetic platform. The laws don't actually cause anything. They're the response to the energy changes first. All creation happens in energetic form before it manifests into a form or a circumstance. So if someone is, boy, I find myself in this position. I'm somebody who is much more comfortable in taking action. Circumstances have it at this time, so I'm basically more or less housebound, but I recognize, and it's so interesting that all of my sessions have stopped. Like, I would like to have more. If you want to have a private session with me, I would love that. You can contact me on Facebook. I was giving a lot of private sessions for a while. They have all stopped. So I know that this is a spiritual, this is the next thing that I'm supposed to be doing, is sitting still and changing the energy for the collective, because that's basically what I do. One of the things that happens, I've been watching this for a long time, is that whoever is the receiver is the feminine force, the feminine energy. The receiver is very often shamed. They feel very guilty. They go into apology. Don't do that. If that's you, learn how to receive from a, so we've also been told not to have a sense of entitlement. That's also wrong. The poor people, the population that largely that I deal with, they need much more of a sense of entitlement, because they feel like crap. They feel like they're not worth as much as the good people. They don't deserve it. They're not worthy. You need to change all of that in the mental space first. That the feminine is worthy. And you need to learn to receive things without any shame, without any embarrassment, without apology. So this directly goes to body image also. It's an energetic platform that has found its way into all sorts of avenues, like body shame, that women aren't supposed to be too fat, don't have too much. And if you do have too much, that's bad. And you should be embarrassed. And you should apologize. And you should do all sorts of things to cover yourself. And you should give away, spend more of your money to adjust the fact that, adjust yourself. So whatever. There are all sorts of, you understand, there are all sorts of brainwashing mechanisms that are all intertwined with the idea that that the receivership is the lesser, and it's not as good. It's better to give than to receive. Well, the giving force, I don't mean the generous, in terms of interacting energies, the doing and the giving force is the masculine. So we need to wipe out the idea that it is better to give than to receive. Both are absolutely required. Also, the idea of receiving, that can go to a lot of things. Receiving is extremely important when it comes to like receiving new ideas, receiving downloads. You need to be more open and honor the feminine more in order to even have a space where new knowledge can come in. Let me see what I'm doing on time. Okay. I feel like there was more I was going to say about that. Then there was more I was going to say about the energetic construct too. Now I forgot what it was. This live stream is nothing at all like what I was going to say. I had it planned. I always do. Oh, you know what I was going to say though? I was going to say, I forgot to mention this. This is like so random. So within these energy streams, the way energy streams work is that it's like rivers of energy that kind of run through the air, and there are semi-solid solidifications of like energy starts to form curds that are elements. So every pool of energy or every river of energy has like things in it. It's kind of like soup with like, you know, chunks of carrots and potatoes and but it's kind of like they form different things. So I started to talk, I was talking a little bit before about the Joan of Arc energy stream, which is really a combination of a lot of different streams that come together kind of in a formation, and it has specific qualities. But one of the reasons I started, I don't know, did I talk about it in this live stream? There was, I was talking to somebody recently, and we were talking about, hang on one second. The way certain things manifest, both circumstances, and if you can, okay, within, it's kind of like this. It's like the Joan of Arc energy stream kind of goes into a perimeter. And within the perimeter, it's kind of like different corrals. I lost my diagram. They're like different corrals. In one of those corrals is, and oh, I should say they need to be cleaned up. The reason they go into different corrals is because they need different things done to them. Kind of like a ward at a hospital. Like we need to do this thing to correct this imbalance. We need to do something else over here. And you definitely belong in oncology because, you know, you've got this other thing going on. They all need to be treated differently. And then we can begin interaction. So we engage with the energy streams differently. But most, and also you can as an individual, you can contain elements from different pens according to you. But there is one corral in the Joan of Arc perimeter that contains a lot of sexual dysfunction. And what that comes from is things like it's better to give than to receive. All of the programming that came from the church where chastity was enforced, and there's like immediate sexual shutdown. There's one corral that contains all of the codes and all of the bastardization of healthy sexual expression, divine sexuality. It contains all of the fucked up crap that was ever done through the church or through the that Joan of Arc storyline. So, and it contains the shutdown of immediate shutdown of all sexuality, in kind of a, well, I started to say in kind of a bear trap way, but that's only true of a portion of it. There's a portion of it that's very sharp and like immediate. It's interesting, but then there's another portion of it where it's bastardized in a different way. However, so if you're somebody who's carrying through your own past life history a lot of this energy, it could manifest as a physical, or also if you're connected, if you're energetically connected to somebody who is carrying a lot of that. If you're connected, if those two energy streams are connected, it depends on how the energy runs, but you could actually be affected as a man by somebody else's past life history if they have been connected to it. We're cleaning out all these codes, so it's not like we're not going to be able to heal this. We can. But the reason I'm mentioning it is because I have a strong suspicion, you know if this is you, there are strong indications that two people in particular, and one other possibility, there's another person, that if you're experiencing sexual problems, either being frigid or particularly erectile dysfunction, that's what I'm thinking of. There are indications in this particular energy stream recently that there's, the men in particular they have erectile dysfunctioning because of this. If you're a man and you're watching this, before you take pharmaceuticals to treat it, go to an energy healer, or you can contact me and I could work with you. But there's things that you could do with energetically, because if you go into, so here's why I'm mentioning it, because if you are somebody who is having this problem and you decide to go through if you go toward Western medicine, which is based in the third dimension, there's a very good chance, because it's third dimensional, and because of the way the energetics are running, there's a very good chance that not only will you make the problem even worse, or it will fail to correct, it can screw up other things in your energy too. What pharmaceutical drugs do to an energy field, because we're physical beings, but we also have energy bodies. And in this time of transition, we're strongly moving more toward the energy body being the dominant one, the dominantly held force. We really want that to happen because that's where all the health is. Particularly if you're somebody who's having a lot of mental problems and your psychiatrist has prescribed pharmaceutical drugs. From the position of spiritual awakening, that's the worst thing you can do, because it totally screws up your, also if you're it totally screws up your energetic field, which is in a process. If you're awakening, if you're in a process of like Kundalini awakening, and you're getting finally clearing out all of the stuff, and you're getting like all of the bastardized codes, and you're beginning to see into realms, the worst thing, the most unhealthy thing you could possibly do for yourself is to put yourself on some sort of pharmaceutical artificial cocktail and try and shut that down because someone said you're psychotic. Don't do that. If you do that, Will you shut it down? Yes, you'll shut it down, but you could also totally screw up your endocrine system. From an energetic perspective, that's one of the worst and least, that's one of the worst things you could possibly do. Go to a shaman. Get a shaman, get somebody who can coach you, who can clear your energy out, who can assist you and say, that's what this is, so you don't go into like this death fear spiral. When recently, let me check the time. Recently, when I went to the psych ward for 10 days, and they wouldn't let me ground. I was out of body, was what I was. But they gave me something the first day I was there. They gave me something against my will. If they had left me at home, I could have brought myself back into body. And instead, they gave me something, and I was unable to get back into my body. It screwed things up really way worse. But it was very interesting because I'm kind of glad it happened now, because I can, like, I see auras and energy moving, etc. And the interesting thing is that they gave me something to prevent hallucination. They thought that I was hallucinating. Really, I was just seeing things interdimensionally. I know what they are. I see them all the time. They don't think it's normal. I know it's normal for me. And it's going to be, pretty soon, it's going to be normal for everybody. But one thing that was interesting when they gave me, I'm not on it anymore, thank God, it was horrible. They gave me risperidone, and that's an antipsychotic. And they gave it to me against my will. I did refuse, and they gave it to me against my will. But what was interesting is that, so normally when I see energies moving, it looks like, if you've ever seen heat rising off pavement, you know, it goes like that. That's what a lot of energy looks like. And sometimes it's much more solid, and sometimes it depends. You know, ghosts and things can appear like a normal person. They can appear as solid as me, but most of the time, like, I can look very easily. I'm watching people's auras as it looks normal. So what was interesting is that when they gave me the risperidone, they said that it would stop psychosis. It's stop hallucinations, but all it did was freeze them in motion. It was so weird. It's kind of like if you were watching like a movie of a waterfall, and someone just stops the movie, and like the water is like somewhat moving, but it was really just like held in place. And that was really weird. But what they didn't understand is that I rely on this information to navigate. I always have. It's kind of like when you know, we need our senses to navigate. Like if you ever trimmed your horse's whiskers. I used to trim my horse's whiskers, and now I think it's like in certain breeds it's illegal, and in certain shows it's now illegal to trim their whiskers, because they realize now that they need that. They have these things for a reason. Don't go trimming whiskers. They need those whiskers. That tells them where the edge is. And I need my senses. You know, I can look at somebody and see, it gives me information about them that I require. Where was I going with this? Why did I mention this? Oh, so medication. So if you're having, basically, before you go jumping on a lot of medications, if you're watching this and you happen to be having symptoms of sexual shutdown, there's something in the energy stream of Joan of Arc. There are a couple of different sexual shutdown things. One of them is a big auto flinch, like, because things will not only manifest into form, they will also manifest into behaviors. like certain interactions, like certain things will come together and then there will be an immediate interaction. We can adjust that over time. One of the things that's happening is that we will kind of clear it for a group, and then that group moves because they're better. And it's kind of like we get another wave in. And so we're clearing it little by little by little. We're clearing it for groups of people. But if you're somebody who gets a flinch, like a big flinch response, that comes from the energy stream. So it might not even be yours necessarily. It could be. If you would like to work on that, you can give me a call. Like, what else do we have? I feel like we're definitely going to go back to the whole money issue. The walk of trust and being fearless. Oh, so how am I doing on time? I think this will be the last thing I say. So I spoke to somebody a couple of months ago who said that, and he's one of these really high level, knock it out of the park light workers. He's doing very high level work. And he's not making any money either. So many of us are doing this full time. We're doing this full time. And we're really, really, really good at what we do. It would not serve humanity for us to go backwards into a fear-based model of the economy, which is all based in fear and lack and a survival. You know, work and do something constantly out of fear for survival, because that is perpetuating the prison. So yes, I understand that a lot of people are still doing it. That's why the first wave, so we're getting everybody out in waves. We're getting everybody to freedom in waves. So the first wave out, the first wavers have to put all of their energy. We're holding this space at 0 point. We're not making any money. It's not that we don't need money or that we're not hugely uncomfortable. A lot of us really are. I'm really uncomfortable. I know that I'm doing this job for a reason. I know that my soul signed up for it. If anybody wants to book a session, I would love that. But I know that when people suddenly stopped booking sessions, I'm like, okay, I'm just doing this portion of the job. So what this man had said to me is that his mother has been giving him donations. And he feels guilty because she's older. And I say, that's one of the things that we're going to need to change. So society, also the way it has been, will have you believe conditioned. There's a conditioned response that says you should take care of yourself. She shouldn't have to take that. You know, you should be on your own and making your own money, and don't make your mother take care of you. There's actually a way that we're getting certain populations, I kid you not, to transfer. So she's not going to go into a fear-based, she's not going to go into probably, she's not going to go into fear and give. So everybody's in the fifth dimension. The model of exchange is that you give what you have. You give what you have. And so her son has a certain degree of bravery and a certain degree of knowledge about the fifth dimension and the way it operates. He's very, very good. So he's doing the work every day. Our job is to get the entire planet from a system that's under control, confined fear, a lack-based system that is controlled by fear and perpetuates itself. The status quo will only exist to perpetuate itself. And if we're going to get everybody into a place of love and giving, we need to be people. We need to have people at that level first, who are holding a space. And because in his case, the mother she's not going to go into a space of 0 point because she's too scared to do it, but she does have certain things in the bank. So if she can take some of her savings and give it to him where he is, she's taking it from a control system. If you look at it from a position of energy, she's taking energy from a control system, the bank, and she's taking this amount of energy, the money, which represents a quantity, and she's engaging in movement to a higher, from something that's third dimensional to something that's fifth dimensional, her son, and she's doing it out of love. So gifts of love are much higher vibrational, provided she's giving it to him out of love rather than giving it to him along with shame and fear. If you put a condition on the money, like, shame on you, I shouldn't have to do this, don't do that. What you should do is just give something out of love. It elevates your own vibrational frequency. It keeps it. What we're trying to do is get a certain quantity of energy, be it money, something tangible, or time, or people, or focus. We need to get a certain quantity of energy up into a fifth dimensional vibrational platform. And the more we can get up to a fifth dimensional vibrational platform, the more it tips the scale one or another. So if we've got we've got the scales, you know what I mean. We have to get more in the fifth dimensional side. You're going to the ocean that you contribute more to is the ocean that you're going to swim in. So if you have money and if you hoard it, or if you give it to somebody and then you put a time limit on it, that would take it down, because you would be putting it toward a timeline. If you put something like, if you put any kind of control on it, like, I'm going to give you this, but make it last. I used to have a business partner who used to say that. Here's $20, make it last. It would be higher vibrational. That's based in a belief system that's based in lack. Making something last is also, which I understand. I'm not stupid. And yes, I have lived in a third dimensional belief system too. But my goal is to figure out, or my job is to figure out how to navigate all of these things and migrate this great number of forces so that they're doing something different. So if you keep doing the same thing you used to do, you're going to keep getting the same result. The fifth dimensional economic model is completely different. And the structure for that already exists. And I will tell you, as someone who watches timelines, I almost have to go. The third dimensional economic model is absolutely collapsing. I guarantee it. I'm trying to say that as a threat. It's collapsing. It's collapsing as soon the government is collapsing. It's not just pedophilia going to take it down. It's the entire legal system, the entire healthcare system. There is a higher system coming in to replace it, but if you keep going back to the old system, you're going to be too invested in it by the time it collapses, because it's all going to go down pretty much all at once, very, very, very quickly. So a lot of the things that people have invested in with the idea, in the belief that this external thing has solidity on the timeline, I need it for the future, so I'm going to invest in it because because out of fear, because I want to make sure I'm safe, so I'm going to give my power to this thing out of fear. You're investing in an external structure that's based in fear, based in lack, and it is automatically third dimensional. The third dimension is 100% collapsing. It's not going to be here anymore. So and the energetic platform is that way. So all of the manifestations of the third dimension can't survive. They can't. You can have other things that are, that doesn't mean that everybody's dying. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have a healthcare system. That means it can't continue the way it was, which is good. It's going to be a lot healthier. But we do have to start to invest in the infrastructure way, 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 way more. And that means give, give, give. There's a circulation system in the fifth dimension that is about giving, and you give whatever you have. If you have money, you give money. If you have time, you give time. If you have expertise, you offer that. Just offer it toward the empowerment of all others, because you are, and here's the thing, the only reason we were scared in the third dimension that nobody would ever take care of us, so we bet it's like every man for himself and based in competition, but that all goes out the window when you're in the fifth dimension and you suddenly have this understanding, this knowledge that you are connected to everyone, and there's a shared love that goes, it's pervasive. So you're not going to have somebody not cover you if you're ill. Or somebody, you know, I have to have money in case my truck breaks down. Well, if your truck breaks down, somebody who knows, who's a mechanic, will say, I'll fix your truck. I have a tow truck. I'll bring you home. Once you are no longer disconnected and in fear and in lack or in control, trying to control others. Like my business partner used to do that too. Like, I'm going to give you $20, but you can only spend it on that. That kind of thing is also, we're not going to have that, because you don't know what that person actually needs. So don't try to make everybody's decision for them. So this is part one. I'm going to go do another one tonight, part two, where I talk about body image, and it would help. If you're going to listen to the second one, you should listen to this one, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about Vashti, issues of Vashti and Esther, and issues of women's bodies and women's rights, and why we've got to, and how those forces can't, basically every force evolves a form. I couldn't get through a live stream without saying it at least once. Every force evolves a form. So why did that form come into being that? And why did we need it to do that? And I'm going to talk about Prince Andrew too. There are certain times when you need something to happen. So on the Ascension arc, we would put certain energies together to get it to do something over here, because somebody has to be, in order to get this thing to do something else, we have to have this thing do this other thing. So in order to engage, anyway, there's a lot of orchestration of events. I'm going to talk about that. Okay. I love you. I have to go have a meeting, and I'm probably going to come on, I don't know when, a couple hours. Oh, if you're able to make a donation, please, dear God. Yeah, we're really in need of groceries, for real, like, not joking. If you're able to contribute anything, you can go to Stephanie R. Kogarth at Facebook, and I'm going to put a link to PayPal. All right. I love you very much. I'll see you later.